Whether you're a product manager, a CMO, or a CEO, chances are you're facing many of the same problems every day. How do you find new users? How do you keep them? And how do you get them to invest a little bit more? I'm assuming that the people in this room know a fair amount about this question. And I'm assuming a fair number of you also know that 50% of users find new apps and games through word of mouth, from their friends and from their family. And research tells us that 50% of users are more likely to engage with an app over a long period of time if they can actually use it with their friends and family. Yet more often than not, we dedicate our resources, our time, and our money to the other 50% of users, looking at indicators and incentives that are targeting individual users taking individual actions. And why do we do this? The answer is pretty simple. It's easier to measure, and it's easier to understand. We know exactly how long it takes somebody to fulfill a specific task within an app. We know exactly how many people click through the ad in the game. But these tend to be lagging indicators, markers of decisions that we've already made. And so clearly there's a gap here. We should be thinking about the forward-looking indicators, the decisions that help us get to that other 50% of users that are harder to measure, the ones that are motivated by word of mouth to find new apps, the ones that have community and relationships that drive long-term engagement. And so my name is Jared, and with me is Sam. We're from Context Partners. Those of you that don't know us, we're based in Portland, Oregon. We focus heavily on insights and engagement and have decades of experience strengthening relationships, growing communities, and building loyalty for brands and causes. For this project, we partnered with 3 incredible organizations: Gameloft, Butterscotch Shenanigans, and Freeletics. 3 organizations that understand the value of relationships and the power of community. We started by interviewing their developers and their community managers, trying to understand what really is working for them and what isn't from their perspective. And then we spoke to their users to understand what's actually working and what's not. And to do this, we used a wide variety of qualitative research methodology, but focused primarily on surveys and interviews to understand the role that apps and games play in their users' lives. And this gave us a window into how people were talking about apps, how they're recommending apps in person and through text conversations, as well as realizing how they're using apps with each other in person and across long distances. And very quickly we realized that not all word of mouth is created equal. Not every relationship leads to engagement. And through all of these conversations, we heard the same refrain: people want more human connection, especially with people who love the things that they love, and especially with people who care about the things that they care about. When people have these kinds of connections, that's when you see word of mouth driving to adoption. Is this better? Ah, thank you. Okay.
Sorry.
Today we're going to look at how and why users have these kinds of connected experiences. We're going to look at how developers create opportunities for meaningful connection, and we're going to encourage you to change the way that you think about the way that you approach your work. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to introduce you to 3 principles that we've seen to be most effective in driving towards connected experiences. Investigating personal affinities as clues to underlying values, challenging users to reach beyond themselves to connect with others, and finally, creating unexpected connections that make experiences feel magical. And as you hear these stories, I want you to continue to think about how to bring this back to your own work, into your day-to-day life. Now I'm going to ask Sam to share a few of the stories that emerged over the course of the research conducted for this project.
Thank you, Jared.
You can do that.
Thank you, Jared. I'm so excited to speak with you today about the things that we learned from getting to know these developers, users, and players. And as you listen to them, I want you to be thinking about the mindsets behind many of the stories that you're going to hear, not just the specific tactics that these developers used. Because over and over we heard that you need to design for your specific communities in their specific moments. So we have a lot to get through today. Let's get started. On this first mindset, I want you to think about something that we all know. We all know that we should be giving our users what they want. If what they want is a feeling of progression, we're going to deliver that feeling of progression. If what they want are high-quality graphics, we're going to deliver high-quality graphics. And if what they want is astronomy, we're going to give them the stars. But the opportunity that we saw was for developers to look beyond just thinking about what their users like and using those affinities as breadcrumb trails that you can follow to the deeper values that your users will love to build communities around. We heard from a user of the Star Walk 2 app. This is an augmented reality app for staring at the sky and learning about constellations. And clearly this was a user who loved the stars. But what we heard from him was that he was having these connected experiences with the app. He was using it with his father, with his uncle. They were tracking celestial objects across long distances with each other. And that what was driving that connection wasn't just an affinity for the stars. It was the shared value that they had, the sense of wonder that you get when you look up at the sky. And we saw the same thing when we spoke to users of Gameloft's Dragon Mania Legends. This is Debbie and her daughter Hannah. And Debbie told us that she plays this game because her daughter recommended it to her. Debbie plays this game because she loves dragons. And so we kept talking to Debbie and we said, "Where does this love of dragons come from, Debbie?" And she said, "Well, my whole family loves mythological creatures. I raised my kids in the arts. I would take them to Renaissance fairs when they were kids. I try to take them to the limits of their imagination." So when Hannah recommended this to Debbie, they weren't connecting over that affinity for dragons. They were connecting over that deeper value of imagination and of family. And we saw this over and over again in the broader spectrum of Android users that we looked at. The people who want to connect over calendar apps want to connect over the value of respect when it comes to other people's time. The people who choose body weight apps over gym equipment want to connect with people over the value of discipline and making no excuses when it comes to their health. And the couple who's tracking their finances together is connecting over the value of commitment and saying, "I'm committed to our future." But how did we know that these users were expressing deeper values and they weren't just connecting over these affinities? Well, for this part of our research, we had sent dozens of Android users out into the real world to capture the conversations they were having around apps and games. They brought us into their dinner parties, into their lunch breaks at work, into their text message conversations. And what we saw is something I think a lot of you know. People love to talk about apps and games. They love to share apps and games with their friends. But so many of those conversations don't lead to more app adoption, don't lead to ongoing engagement. And we wanted to figure out why. What we learned is that not all word of mouth is created equal. We heard from users of finance apps like Mint and Chase Mobile. And these users would tell us, "I love recommending these apps to my friends. I show them these beautiful pie charts. I tell them about the amazing typography. I try to tell them how easy it is to use these apps, and yet my friends don't use them. Even when I go so far as to install the app on their phone for them, they still don't start using the app." But when we talked to users who were successful, who did get their friends to start using apps, we heard something very different. We heard from a Mint user who said, "I struggle with my finances." So I asked a friend of mine who looked like she had it all together, and I said, "How do you do it? How do you stay on top of your money?" And my friend told me, "It's hard for me too. I use Mint so I can see how I'm spending my money and try to do a little bit better next month. It's hard for me too." These aren't two people who are connecting over an affinity for pie charts or typography. These are people connecting over their deeper values of control and struggle when it comes to their finances. So today is about mindsets. And what we want you to think about here is how to look beyond just your users' affinities. Take what they like as the beginning of the journey of learning about the deeper values that people love to build communities around. This is work that's a lot more fun to do than you might think. We do it a lot at Context Partners. And if you think of it as ethnographic research or you think of it as qualitative research studies, it can sound really daunting. But what we're really talking about is giving your users space to tell you their stories, what your app really means to them. And this will make your decision-making easier because you'll know which parts of your app really connect to those deeper values that are driving your word-of-mouth engagement. Now today, what I want you all to do is think about a project you're working on right now, a decision you're facing, something you're going to have a meeting about tomorrow. And I want you to plug that decision into a series of questions. Here's our first one. And ask, will this feature that I'm working on, this new app that I'm developing, this marketing campaign that I'm putting together, connect with what's truly meaningful to our users? Because answering this question is how you're going to appeal to that 50% of users who finds their apps and games through word of mouth. This is how you're going to appeal to that 50% of users who will be more engaged with apps that they can use with their friends and family, because it's those values that they're going to be connecting over. And if you're having trouble answering this question, it's a good time to take a step back and learn which of your users' affinities map to those deeper values. So this is the first step as we're building these bridges of connected experience. First, we need to get to know our users, and we recommend digging into their personal affinities to find their underlying values. Next, we need to get our users outside of themselves. And one of the most effective ways we saw developers doing this is by using challenges to motivate their users to reach out to others. To illustrate this, I want you to think about a moment in your life when there was something you desperately wanted that was just out of your reach. Something that you just couldn't quite get to alone. What did you do? Did you give up? Or did you reach out for help? Or I want you to think about a moment in your life when you truly accomplished something great, something that meant a lot to you and it was really hard. What did you want to do right after? I know for me, I want to tell other people about it. And not just anybody, I want to tell the people who understand, who know what I've been through, who know what it's like. And that's what we heard from so many of these Android users. In the stories they would tell us about their favorite apps and games, we heard these stories of challenge, of struggle, of overcoming. Those were the best stories, the ones that made us want to try new apps. Apps like Freeletics. In a lot of ways, Freeletics is built around this concept of challenge. They're a company that makes several health apps, and they're best known for one that coaches users through body weight exercises. Over the past 5 years, they've built not just a big user base, 20 million users, but an active user community, people who work out together in public at Freeletics training spots around the world. And what was so striking when we spoke to these Freeletics users was the pride in their voices, the passion they felt about Freeletics. So much of that passion came from how hard the workouts are. That's what we heard from users like Elliot. I'll tell you right now, Elliot is a user you want if you care about community. Because Elliot is the kind of person who shows up at training spots and he welcomes new users warmly. It's important to him that people have a great first time at these training spots. He's the kind of user who doesn't just buy the premium subscription for himself. He buys premium subscriptions as gifts for his friends and family. And when I asked Elliot, this incredible user, what did you like about Freeletics when you first started using it? This is what he told me. He really didn't. His exact words were, liked isn't the word I would use. He said it was too intense. But at that moment in his life, that intensity, that challenge was exactly what he was looking for. Freeletics delivered it, and now this is what he says. The people I work out with are the people I hang out with. He welcomes new users warmly. He buys premium subscriptions for other people. Why? Because he wants other people who know what it's like, who've experienced the challenge. And we heard this from every Freeletics user we spoke to. They all want to be around other people who know what it means to train. Multiple people said, I want to be around people who remember the pain. How often do we think about removing pain from our users? And these users are telling you, I want to be around other people who remember the pain, because it's that pain that drives them to reach out to others. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, yeah, this is a fitness app. People want to be challenged in fitness apps, but my users want everything to be easy. And you're mostly right. When it comes to the transactional parts of your app, when it comes to your login screen, the navigation of your UI, yes, make these things as easy as possible. But when it comes to the core experience of your app, the reason your users are there, that's the time to challenge them. That's the time not to say, well, that's fine for Freeletics, but to ask, what does the Freeletics of finance look like? What would drive the most passionate Pinterest or Memrise users to get outside and make their things with others? And obviously, there's tons of room to talk about this in games. So we talked to the indie developers at Butterscotch Shenanigans. These are the makers of the hit game Crashlands and the forthcoming Levelhead. Obviously, a studio who knows how to connect with the values of their users. And they told us about a constant debate when they're making games, something that I'm sure a lot of you have faced. How much information should we give our users? Should we tell them everything they need to know, make things super easy, but risk some users leaving if this is too boring, too obvious? Or do we hide some things, give our users that wonderful feeling of challenge and discovery, but we risk losing some users if we make it too difficult? Well, for Crashlands, they lean towards guiding the player. Through in-game instructions like this one, their players were never unclear on exactly what the next step in their game should be. They always knew exactly what to do. But these guys are experimenters, so they made one exception. This is the Mega Gong, the most powerful weapon in the game. And I can see on your faces, this is a fish sword you want. I can tell. And this was a fish sword their users wanted too. So for this one, they made things more difficult. They didn't give their users all the information. They hid things. They made real challenges. Users were going to have to complete tasks that had about a 1 in 1,000 chance of success. And what do you think happened? Did the users who loved this game leave, throw up their hands and quit because it was too difficult? Just the opposite. This challenge is what drove users to their forums. Inside the Butterscotch Shenanigans forums, you saw users posting screenshots, coming together, trying to solve this together, strategizing with each other. This was a single-player game, and this weapon, this challenge, became what brought users together. So what would your users work for? What's the awesome fish sword they're waiting for you to build? Now, today is about mindsets again, and this one can take a little bit of a mindset shift for some of us because challenges can be counterintuitive. We all want to make things that are easy to use. We want to make those slippery sales funnels that our users can slide right down. And when it comes to the transactional parts of our apps, we absolutely should. But again, when it comes to the challenge, when it comes to the core experience of your app, this is the time to think about what will my users reach out to others for? What will they really work for? Think about the best stories you hear and the best stories you tell, the things you keep telling around your office. I'm betting that these aren't the stories of everything coming easily, of everything working out, of you always knowing exactly what to do. The best stories are full of challenge, and your users want it too. So let's think again about this decision we're facing tomorrow, this project we're working on. And now let's ask this question. Will this inspire our users to stretch beyond their limits? Because answering this question is how we're going to get, again, to that 50% of users who will be more engaged with apps that they can use with their friends and family. This is how you'll get them to reach out. This is how you're going to connect with the 2/3 of users who say they'll be more engaged with apps that they feel an emotional connection to. You're going to create that emotional connection by genuinely challenging them. So, as we're continuing to build these bridges of connected experiences, we've talked about how to get to know our users better. We've talked now about how to use challenges to motivate them to reach outside of themselves. Now let's talk about how to bring them together. Because we said at the beginning that your users have this desire for connection. They want to be around other people who love the things that they love, who care about the things they care about. But so often, what we're pushing our users towards are individual actions. We're tracking the things that individual users do to meet metrics that individual users can meet. It's like we're a bookstore, and our only KPI is, did we sell one book to one person? Did one person buy one book and they got out of here? Great, success. That's fine, but it's awfully limiting. Because the opportunity that bookstores have is to create the kind of space for unexpected connections that truly make experiences magical. That feeling that your customers, your users can have when they can say, I came here for this, but I found that. Sociologists have known about this effect for decades. They tell us that one of the keys to developing friendships, to developing relationships, is to have repeated, unplanned interactions. Repeated, unplanned interactions. It's the way that you just bump into people in the bookstore, in the coffee shop. What we found in our research is that this is not limited to the physical world. Your apps and games can do it too. I spoke to a user of the game Dice Duel. I don't know if they're in the house tonight, but this is Dice Duel. This is a game for virtually playing dice. And she told me about how I recommended this app to my dad because I had played dice games with him when I was a kid. Thought he would like it. She was right. He loved it. What happened next, she was not expecting. She said, this is a guy who won't check his text messages, who won't use WhatsApp. But inside of Dice Duel, we are having the kinds of repeated, unplanned interactions that are strengthening our relationship. I can always find him there. And when I tell that story, people will often tell me, well, that's just luck. Some of our users are always going to find connection around our apps and games. We don't need to design for it. We can't even design for it. And I'm telling you that it's not luck. Bookstores and coffee shops are designed experiences. When you spend time in them, you can see how they're designed to send traffic in ways that put people together. Many of you probably know the story of the Pixar building that is designed to bring people from different departments together in unexpected and unplanned ways because they knew that it was those moments where the real magical ideas were going to come from. Your apps and games can do the same thing. Let's take a look at how Gameloft does it, again, inside of Dragon Mania Legends. This is Nina. And Nina told me that like so many Dragon Mania Legends players, she came for the dragons. But what she found was something very different. She said she'd been playing for a little while, she was getting bored, and she decided to join an in-game clan. For anyone who doesn't know, clans and leagues inside of games are like teams where 20 people work together, share resources, strategize, compete against other teams. And the team that Nina joined was very intense. This is a group of people that vets new users to make sure they can stay committed to the game. They want people from all over the world so that someone can be grinding 24 hours inside the game, and they formed a real community. They maintain a separate Facebook Messenger group where they share pictures of each other's puppies and keep up with each other's lives and get each other excited about what's coming next in the game. This was not what Nina came for. Nina came for the dragons. She found a real community of people who love what she loves, who cares what she cares about. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. Gameloft designed this space for her. I'm going to tell you about 2 decisions they made. One, inside of this team, there is an in-game chat window so people can communicate with each other. That one might seem obvious, but I've seen a lot of apps and games now that try to appeal to the idea of teams, and they tell a bunch of users, you are all on a team now, but there's no way for them to interact with each other. Or they put users into multiplayer modes where they play a bunch of random people one time and leave wondering if they were even playing against real people. That chat window is how Nina is able to have those repeated, unplanned connections with those people grinding inside the game 24 hours a day. Gameloft also makes it really easy for people to not just join these teams, but to leave them. Because we're talking about sub-communities of players, very specific cultures. There's a good chance you're not going to join the one you want right away. They make it easy to leave and try another one. Gameloft is designing this experience, and players like Nina are filling it with that magical feeling of connection. So again, today is about mindsets. And what we're asking you to do with this one is to think beyond individual users taking individual actions that you can easily measure with individual metrics. And think about how you can drive towards deeper connections, real meaningful storytelling, the kind of thing that's going to drive long-term engagement with your apps. Because let's look at the users we've talked about. Nina was getting bored. The community is who she plays for now. If we go back to Elliot and Freeletics, Elliot told me he downloaded Freeletics so he could work out alone. Now that community is who he plays for now. Nina and Elliot have both been daily active users for years. These developers are solving problems that all of you face. How do we keep long-term interest for our users? How do we keep subscriptions going? How do we create surprise and delight and novelty for them? Well, think about where you find those things in your own life. You find it in the bookstore and in the coffee shop when you keep running into your friends. Maybe you find it on an airplane when you strike up a great conversation with someone who just happens to have the same backpack as you. Maybe it's at a conference where you come to learn more about your industry, but you leave thinking about all the new friends you've made. Each one of these things can feel like luck, can feel like coincidence, but they're all designed experiences, and you can design those experiences too. By taking a look at that decision that you're facing right now and plugging it into this question, which is, will this move us towards a culture where relationships thrive? Are we creating the spaces for the kinds of unexpected connections that make experiences truly magical? Because this, again, is how we're going to get to that 50% of users who find their apps and games through word of mouth. The 50% of users who will be more engaged with apps that they can use with their friends and family. Answering this question will do that for us. So at Context Partners, we had such a great time getting to know these developers and users and players. We had so many ideas and stories that we've been kicking around that have really re-inspired and reinvigorated us in our own work. And I hope these 3 mindsets have done the same thing for you. We've talked about getting to know your users better by using personal affinities to dig into their underlying values, how to use challenges to motivate them to reach out to others, and how unexpected connections can truly make experiences magical. I'll bring Jared back up now.
Thank you, Sam. All right, so we've been talking a lot about bridges and connecting people. Hold on. And connecting people. And it's through these moments that you really start to see things happen. Moments when you realize that you're not the only one that loves this app or feels this way about the game. These are the experiences that drive community. Experiences like the one that we're all having now, where you can connect with the people around you over the idea of connecting with people is a task worth taking on. And so what should you do after you leave the room today? Bring back mindsets, not tactics. Think about how you can bring these into your work every day. We've introduced the questions, about how to create those spaces to inspire people to reach beyond themselves, and asking if this is the kind of work that will move toward those places where relationships can really thrive. And as you do that, I want to leave you with one question. Where will I build bridges today? Thank you.